You ever stop and wonder if there's, a grand design to everything? Today, we're jumping right into that exact question. We're going to explore this really big idea called divine providence. It's a concept that tries to explain, well, everything, from the stars up there to the little choices we make every single day. So let's get into it.
Seriously, just think about your own life for a minute. You know, that chance meeting that changed everything? Or that train you missed which led to something else? That totally unexpected opportunity that just fell into your lap? Are those just random, chaotic blips in a universe that couldn't care less? Or could they be little threads in some kind of bigger tapestry? That's really the core question we're looking at today.
So the theological answer to that huge question comes down to one word: providence. And it's more than just a word, right? It's this whole framework for understanding how the universe isn't just, created and then left alone, but how it's actively managed, day in and day out.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, providence isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. It's defined as God's continuous work. And that's the key word right there, continuous. It's about sustaining creation, kind of like the roots holding up a massive tree. It's about guiding it, like a steady hand on the steering wheel. And it's about governing it, all to get to some final intended purpose. It's this active, ongoing process, happening all the time. Here's a really good way to picture it. Imagine an architect who designs a beautiful building. Now, normally, they finish the job, hand over the keys, and they're gone, right? But with Providence, it's like the architect never leaves. They stick around. They become the maintenance crew, the security guard, the building manager, all rolled into one. They're making sure the whole thing stays standing and is being used exactly the way it was designed to be every single moment.
All right, so just how far does this whole thing go? I mean, are we just talking about the big stuff, like planets and galaxies, or does it zoom in way, way in?
The scope here is, well, it's absolutely breathtaking. It's literally everything. We're talking the entire universe, the physical world around us, the weather, the seasons, the animal kingdom, even the massive sweep of human history, like the rise and fall of whole nations. And then it zooms all the way in, right down to each and every one of our individual lives.
And this quote from Matthew really drives the point home. It suggests that this divine care is so meticulous, so detailed, that not even a single sparrow falls to the ground without it being part of the plan. Think about that. Something we'd see as totally insignificant is still noticed and accounted for. It's just this really powerful image of complete and total oversight.
Okay, so let's pull this back from the cosmos and the sparrows and bring it right down to us, to our lives. What does all this mean for our successes? And, yeah, for our failures too.
And this is where the whole idea gets really interesting, because it can be both incredibly comforting and honestly a little challenging to think about. See, in this view, your biggest wins, your greatest successes, they're not just you, they're part of the plan. But, and this is the tough part, so are your failures. Both the good and the bad are seen as essential pieces of the exact same puzzle, guided by the same hand.
So, what about pure random luck? Winning the lottery. Or that person you just happen to bump into on the street who ended up changing your entire life. Well, according to this idea, those aren't accidents. What looks to us like a total coincidence, it's still just another thread in that big design. Basically, there's no such thing as random outside of the system. Okay, so we've talked about what providence is and the sheer scale of it. But how does it actually work? Like, what are the mechanics? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine room, so to speak.
So it really breaks down into three connected ideas. First up is preservation. This is the idea that God is actively holding everything in existence from moment to moment. Then you have concurrence. This one's interesting. It says God's power works with and through other things, like the laws of nature and even our own free will. So our choices still matter, but they're happening inside this bigger framework. And finally, there's government, which is the part that directs everything towards its final purpose.
And right about now, you're probably thinking about the elephant in the room. I mean, if a perfect architect is running the show, why is there so much evil and suffering in the world? How does a system like this even begin to explain sin and all the brokenness we see? This is a really tough one, and the theological answer hinges on a key distinction. It's this idea of permissiveness. The thinking goes like this: God does not create evil or sin. He isn't the author of it. But God permits it to exist. It's allowed within the plan, with the understanding that even evil can be redirected or used to bring about some greater good in the end, a purpose we might not be able to see from where we're standing. So we've laid out the system, right? The normal operating procedures, preservation, concurrence, government. But what happens when the architect decides to step outside of their own blueprint and break the rules?
Well, that's what's called extraordinary providence, but you and I know it by a much simpler name, a miracle. Within this framework, a miracle is when God steps in and acts directly, supernaturally, temporarily pushing aside the normal laws of nature to make a specific point or achieve a specific goal.
And it's really important to get this straight. Miracles are the exception, not the rule. They aren't how things normally work day to day. The everyday stuff happens through those subtle, consistent processes we already talked about. A miracle is like a big, flashing sign. It's meant to be a visible, pattern-breaking event that makes an unmistakable point.
And that brings us full circle, right back to the beginning. Now that we've walked through this incredible framework, this architecture of reality, the question comes back to you. When you look back on your own life, on the path you've taken, what do you see? A series of random coincidences and disconnected events? Or do you see the faint outline of a story, maybe one guided by a purpose you don't fully understand yet? It's definitely something to think about.